What's up, Math 8? Thanks for tuning in with another episode of Math with Mullins. We are finishing up lesson 2.3 today, how to solve multi-step equations, but now what happens when we see those in story problems. The first thing we want to understand is figuring out how to solve story problems. We want to make sure, are we finding that important information? Can we define our variable? Once you define your variable and find that important information, then you can write your equation, solve it like we learned yesterday, and then check to see if your answer makes sense. If you had not had time yet, go ahead and pause this video now, copy these 5 quick steps, and when you're ready to check and go on, click play. All right, our very first example is actually given to us. It says, write and solve an equation and show your work. The height in feet of a tree after X years is 1.5x plus 15 is equal to 24. So after how many years is a tree 24 feet tall? So X is our years, and our important information has already been given to us. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to go ahead and start solving our equation. So I have 1.5x plus 15 is equal to 24. The very first thing I'm going to do is subtract 15 from both sides. So I'll have left over 1.5x, and then 24 minus 15 should give you 9. The next thing I'm going to have to do is divide both sides by 1.5. So 9 divided by 1.5 is giving me 6. So that means 6 years is all it'll take to have the tree grow 24 feet tall. Again, we always want to check our work, so what we do is just plug this in. 1.5 times 6 plus 15 should be equal to 24. I know 1.5 times 6 is equal to 9, and 9 plus 15 does equal 24, so x does truly equal 6. This next one is kind of tricky because you have to understand what mean or average is. It says you scored an 88, a 92, and 87 on 3 tests. What score do you need on the 4th test so that your mean test score is 90? So one thing we have to understand about mean is when we are finding mean, we are adding all of our scores together. So I'm adding 88 plus 92 plus 87 plus an additional test. So let's say that test is the letter A, and I'm dividing it by how many tests I've taken. So that would be 4 test scores. So I'm dividing that by 4, and that should be equal to 90. So here's my equation. Now let's solve it. The first thing I need to understand is that everything on the top of this fraction is grouped together. So I'm going to actually work this backwards, and instead of adding and subtracting first, I'm going to multiply by 4 first. Because I'm doing that, these 4's can cancel out. So now that's left is 88 plus 92 plus 87 plus A equals 90 times 4, that's 360. Okay. One thing I maybe want to do here is combine like terms. So I'm going to do 88 plus 92 plus 87, and I'm going to get 267 plus A equals 360. So now all I have to do is subtract 267 to figure out how much I should make on that test. 360 minus 267 is 93. So I should be making a 93 on that test to maintain my 90 average. Again, I could check my work. 88 plus 92 plus 87 plus 93. Divide that by 4. It does allow me to get 90, so I know my answer is correct. Number 3, write and solve an equation showing your work. The height of each story of a 2-story house is represented by x. So right now, we already know that here's our little house, and each level, here's like story number 1. So this is first floor, this is second, and it's labeled by the letter X. Then it says the roof is 6. The height of the entire house is 26 feet. What's the height of each story? So what we need to do first is write that equation. I know my first floor is X, plus the second floor is X, plus the roof is 6 equals 26. What I'm going to ask you to do now is think about how do you combine like terms here. X plus X is 2X. So now I have 2X plus 6 is equal to 26. This is not the only way to solve this equation. It's just one way to think about it. Then I subtracted 6 from both sides. 2X is equal to 20. My final step is to divide both sides by 2 so that X is equal to 10. So the height of each story is 10 feet. So story 1 is 10, story 2 is 10, and the final story, or the roof, is 6. So added together, they equal 26. Next up, the area of a postcard. Remembering what area is base times height or length times width. The area is 24 inches squared. The postcard is B plus 3 lengthwise by 4 inches tall. So what is the area B? In order to do this, I'm going to have to multiply my length times width, or my base times height. So I'm going to multiply 4 times B plus 3, and that should be equal to 24. Here's a perfect example of when I need to distribute. 4 times B is 4B, and 4 times 3 is 12. So 4B plus 12 is equal to 24. Now I need to solve for letter B. First up, subtracting 12 from both sides. I get 4B is equal to 12. Then finally, I can divide both sides by 4, so that B is equal to 3. What is the width B of the message in inches? So the width, again, is this B plus 3. I'm not just asking for what B is equal to, I'm actually asking what is the width of that. So it should be 3 plus 3, which is equal to 6 inches. Inches wide. Okay, this would be an example of like a test question. If you just solved for letter B, we would get you half credit here. So you want to make sure that you're reading the entire question to get your full credit and plugging it in for how actually long or wide is that postcard. Number 5, a machine prints 230 movie posters each hour. How many hours does it take the machine to produce 1,265 posters? We can solve this question by multiplying 230 times x would be equal to 1,265. We're just trying to figure out how many hours would they need to print those. To solve this, I'm going to be dividing. A lot of the times, if you can't figure out how to write your equation, is think about how could I solve? Since I would need to use division, I need to show multiplication in my original equation, like here, okay? So 1,265 divided by 230 is going to be 5.5. So they would need approximately 5.5 hours. Our final example is a really good example to make sure you know how to do. Write and solve the equation, show your work. Find the value of x, and the sum is equal to 180. So we know that triangles, if you add all angles together, they equal 180 degrees. So we should probably start by writing an equation. I have x here plus x plus 5 plus x plus 25 equals 180 degrees. Here is a perfect example of combining like terms. I have 3 x's, so that combines to 3x plus, then I have this positive 5 and a positive 25. That combines together and gives me 30, is equal to 180 degrees. Now that I have this equation written, it's a little bit easier to solve for x. Let's go ahead and subtract 30 from both sides. So I get 3x is equal to 150. And then my final step, as always, dividing 150 divided by 3, I get 50. So x is equal to 50. Thank you so much for tuning in for our final lesson of 2.3. If you enjoyed this video and if it helped you at all, give it a thumbs up, and we'll catch you next time.